Each of us has a demand for every good and service. For things you don't really want, your willingness to pay is low, and so you will only buy it if the price falls below that willingness to pay. For other things, you're willing to pay a lot to have it, and so you will buy it even if the price is pretty high, just so long as it is still less than or equal to the maximum you would pay if you had to. In the last video, we looked at a specific utility function and derived the demand curve generated by that utility function. Of course, in real life, people's preferences are much more complex than just multiplying the quantities of two goods together. For one, we're choosing between a lot more than just two goods. But that was just an example of a general solution which still applies to our complex world. We face both trade-offs and constraints, and as a result, there's a limit to what we would be willing to pay for something. But it isn't just you alone out there deciding what you want to buy and what you're willing to pay for it. There are lots of consumers, and the total quantity demanded by everyone will depend on the price charged, just like it does for the individual. You can imagine a reverse auction, where instead of everyone bidding on something, the auctioneer just announces how much something costs, and everybody who wants to buy it at that price raises their hand. When they announce a high price, only a few people raise their hands, those who desire the good the most. But if a lower price is announced, then more hands go up. So total market demand will look somewhat like individual demand. Well, let me be more specific. Every person is going to have their own unique demand curve. But when you add them together, you get the total quantity purchased at every price. And that is market demand. Here is an example. Let's say our society consists of just Sheehan, Colby, Sundra, and Ozzy. And they are each interested in buying some cheeseburgers. The table shows each of their individual demands. Sheehan is willing to pay $3 for a cheeseburger. But if they cost $2.50 or less, she would be willing to buy 2 cheeseburgers. And if they are $2 or less, she will buy 3. The table shows the amount Sheehan would be willing to pay for 1, 2, or 3 cheeseburgers. Likewise, Colby would pay at most $2 for 1 cheeseburger, $2.50 total for 2, and $3 total for 3 cheeseburgers. Just by looking at these first 2, we can see that Sheehan is pretty interested in buying multiple cheeseburgers, while Colby is really only looking for 1 and will only buy more if they are very cheap. This doesn't mean that Colby isn't hungry. It could be that he prefers hot dogs or chicken sandwiches, and he will only buy cheeseburgers if they are relatively cheaper. Our willingness to pay doesn't just depend on how much we want something, but also whether or not we have good alternatives available. Sundra and Ozzy, on the other hand, are cheeseburger fanatics. They love cheeseburgers and will pay a lot for them. Let's think about what happens as our fictional auctioneer raises the price of cheeseburgers. If the price of cheeseburgers is $1, then all 4 of our friends here will buy 3 cheeseburgers, totaling to 12 cheeseburgers for the whole market. But if the price goes up to $1.25, then Colby is only willing to buy 2 cheeseburgers. At that price, 3 burgers would cost $3.75, which is more than he's willing to pay for them. But he is willing to pay the $2.50 it would cost to get 2 burgers. So now the total market demand for cheeseburgers is 11. At $2 per burger, Colby cuts back again, buying only 1 burger, while the other 3 are still willing to pay for 3 burgers, though Sheehan is right at her limit there. At $2.50, Sheehan and Colby both would reduce their consumption. Colby is off to buy something else for lunch, but Sheehan is still willing to buy 2 burgers. At $3, Sheehan cuts back again. But if we go up to $4 per burger, we have a big drop-off. Sheehan, Sundra, and Ozzy all eliminate 1 burger, and the total market demand falls to just 4 cheeseburgers. At $5, Sandra and Ozzy cut back again, bringing us down to a total of 2 burgers. At $6, only Ozzy is left, and he's willing to buy 1 cheeseburger. If the price went up even a penny more, market demand would fall to 0. But look at this table we built. We combined each individual demand to produce an overall market demand. And these numbers are just coordinates for points along that market demand curve. If we graph each of those points and connect the dots, we get market demand for our little society of 4. Notice that market demand aggregates everyone's individual preferences. The table shows what Xi'an's best choice is if burgers are $3 or $2.50 or $2 each, and shows similar choices for Colby and Sandra and Ozzy. Each of them is individually maximizing their utility subject to their constraints. But market demand is an aggregation of all those choices that helps inform society about how many burgers we might want to direct resources towards producing. Notice that as the price of cheeseburgers falls, more people are interested in buying one. And as it falls further, they're interested in buying more than one. Each point on a demand curve tells us a lot. It tells us how many people will buy at that price. But compared to other points, it also tells us who is willing to pay the most to buy the next unit of that good. All of this lets us make a few claims about market demand. First is that as the price of something falls, more people will be willing to pay for one. Further, as the price of something falls, people will be willing to pay for more than one. For these reasons, the relationship between the price of a good and the quantity demanded will be an inverse one. That is, when the price of a good decreases, the quantity demanded increases. In other words, demand is downward sloping. This is a prediction we derived from our theory of consumer behavior, and it is an important one. But it isn't a particularly surprising one. In fact, this relationship between prices and how much people will buy is so deeply verified by both intuition and evidence that we call it the law of demand.